Ya Ali Madad. Alwaaz, Rai Abu Ali Missionary, wise number 954.
Mr. Chairman, leaders of the community, my brothers and sisters, ever since my childhood, I was very much inquisitive about knowing where Ismailis were living. To whomever I asked about it, I couldn't be satisfied because about 60 years ago, people did not travel so much. Communications were not as good as now. When I grew about 12 years of age, and I learned that Imam Sultan Muhammad Shah had sent Sabzali missionary to Central Asia with his tariqat and to meet the Jamaats in that area, particularly Chitral, Hunza, Badakhshan, Sinkiang. This news gave me, rather boosted my interest, and by chance my father was traveling to Afghanistan, so I just requested him that I wanted to go with him, and I traveled with him to Afghanistan. That was in 1932. When I saw Afghan Ismailis, I was very much happy that there were Ismailis other than the Indian Ismailis in those days. You remember that India was a subcontinent including Kashmir, Pakistan. So we were called as Indian Ismailis. I made up my mind at that young age that when I would grow, I will travel and I would see the Jamaat and I would meet them. And Alhamdulillah, I thank God that I did it. And even now at this age, I am traveling. I have traveled many places. I have got a complete list and diary of it. I have been keeping all my travel diaries. And now I am writing my own travels, my own biography. And inshallah, after a few years' time, I'll be able to give a lot of detailed information about my travels and the Jamaats. During the time of Imam Sultan Muhammad Shah, we did not know how many Ismailis there were in the world. But Imam Sultan Muhammad Shah gave an interview to a British paper which was published in 1933-34. The interview was about 4 or 5 years earlier of that time. I'm sorry. In that interview he said, I'm a direct descendant of the Prophet, and a large number of Mohammedan faith today, numbering about 20 millions, acknowledge me as their head. About 20 million Ismailis in the late 20s was a large figure. I had no access to Maulana Sultan Muhammad Shah at that age, but when I came to Bombay to join the mission, I tried to inquire from other missionaries, including missionary Sabzali but we could not make any point. Then I myself started traveling in 1962. But before 1962, I had traveled all over India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Africa, Europe. But after that time, I traveled to Iran, Salamia, from Iran to Russia, and from Afghanistan to Chitral, also China. 5 times during my lifetime I have traveled around the world, from Australia to Canada, even southern part of America, South America. You know that it is so difficult to take a census of a community, particularly like that of Ismailis living in Middle Eastern countries and in the Central Asia and Minor Asia. Most of Ismailis in those parts, they are living a nomadic life. They are engaged in agriculture or cattle raising. Very few people are in business or in any kind of other trade. Many Ismaili tribes, I call them as Ismaili tribes because there are family groups living in Wakhan Valley and also in Tajikistan area, even in China's Xinjiang. They have, say, a family group numbering from anyway 100 to 800. They move from place to place, subject to the condition of the weather and also about the food condition they take in mind. My source of information were the leaders of the community that I came across. Definitely, I have not been able to go place to place, village to village, town to town. But I met most of the leaders in all these areas, and the collection was fantastic. I still now do not believe that it may be true, but I have no other way just to put these figures into reality or in fact. One thing is certain. Ismailis are living in many parts of the world as common Muslims. In India, there are between 150,000 to 200,000 Ismailis living as Guptis. They profess Hinduism, but they are Ismailis. Few of them are known to me personally. They live in the Punjab of, Indian side, Eastern Punjab. Many of them migrated from the western side when partition of India and Pakistan took place in 1947. Many Guptis are related to me through my father and mother. There are about 32,000 Ismailis. They profess Hinduism outside, and they are Guptis living in East Punjab, and most of them, they are around about Chandigarh, Amritsar, Patiala, Kapurthala. Many thousand Ismailis are living in Kathiawar in Gujarat, and in few places in Gujarat they have even their own Jamaat Khanas concealed from the outer world. Their names are Hindus. They are mixed with Hindus. but they are Ismailis. Likewise, in Iran, in many parts, Ismailis conceal their faith and they are living secretly, but outwardly they mix with the general Muslim public. And you know that the conditions, political conditions in all countries sometimes are absolutely unfavorable to the life of Ismailis. In Russia also, there are many Ismailis, and I would say our major part of Ismaili population lives in Russia, United Soviet Republic. They live in Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, Badakhshan, Caucasia, Ural, Russian Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan was divided into two parts after the First World War, and the southern Azerbaijan is in Iran and northern part connected with Baku where petrol is found. And likewise Badakhshan is also divided into two parts. Southern Badakhshan is in Afghanistan and northern portion is in Russia. So these Ismailis who are living in these parts, unless they are absolutely sure that someone is not exploiting them politically, they would not just expose themselves. They would say, we are Muslims. But when they come to know and understand that the questioner is an Ismaili, so they would be very happy to meet him. I didn't travel alone from one part of the world to another part, like say from Iran. I was with the Mukhi of these Bad and traveled in other parts of Iran as well as Russia. When I went to Afghanistan, I took son of the Mukhi Jamal Khan from Kandahar, and then we traveled to Wakhan Valley. Now Wakhan is in the northern part of Afghanistan, and I came to know that the population of Wakhan was 100% Ismaili. They are very tall, very well built. Normally double of my size presently that I'm standing before you. During the winter time they come down to the valleys, and when summer approaches they just climb the high mountains and live there. They are nomads. They live in groups of their own families. Sometimes they grow to 800, as I told you. I spent much time on traveling in various ways, on foot, on a mule's back, even sometime on a buffalo's back crossing a river or stream, camel, and of course some other means like carts driven by bullocks or a horse. My estimate is between 23 million and 24 million Ismailis living in the world, and the figures that I collected are like this. In Afghanistan, there are 600,000 Ismailis. China and Mongolia, 6.5 million Ismailis. Europe, North and South America and Africa about 80,000. India, Pakistan and Far East put together make 700,000. Iran, Iraq and Turkey 1.2 million. Middle East 150,000. Russia 14 million. Fantastic. Let me tell you one more thing. In 1962, I went to Iran, and after visiting the southern side of Russia, I came back. Then again I visited in 63. That was in February 63. I had a work to see the Interior Minister of Iran, and now the President of Ismailia Council in Iran. At that time there was no Ismailia Council in Iran. Maulana Hadar Imam appointed this council about few years ago, 6 or 7 years ago. My host was Dr. Hussein Dadulahi. He is now the president of the Ismailia Council. He is a dentist by profession and also a lecturer in the University of Tehran. I knew him from childhood when he was studying in Bombay. And whenever I go to Tehran, I live with him. I requested him to make an arrangement to see Interior Minister. So we made an arrangement, and both of us, we went to see the Minister of Interior. I asked him a question. I said the Shah had announced to give 5-acre land to each and every major Iranian who is over 18 years of age. But I'm sorry to say, I told him, no Ismaili has ever been given such a gift from the Shah. And if there was any discrimination about for Ismailis, he said there was no discrimination. On the contrary, the Shah has already accepted Ismailism officially as part of Iran. But he told me, you do not know anything about the affair. So he took me in the adjacent room. There was a big map of Iran. The whole wall was covered with that map. He showed me the areas with a stick. Kerman, Mehlat, and even some part of Azerbaijan. And he said that all these places are officially, legally, the property of the Aga Khan from his grandfather. And I said, how we come? He said that, you know, Aga Hassan Ali Shah married a daughter of Fateh Ali Shah Kachar, the Shen Shah of Iran of that time. And Fateh Ali Kachar gave a lot of land as a gift to his daughter and son-in-law. Then again, Aya Ali Shah married the daughter of the Prime Minister, and that Prime Minister was also son-in-law of the Shah. So he gave again a lot of land as a gift to his daughter and son-in-law. And he said that if he was not in mistake, about 30% of these areas are in personal property of the Aga Khan, and tell the Aga Khan to give land to his followers. We have no such land for them. Then he told me, he said, listen, there are 1.2 million Ismailis. That was the statement which shocked me, coming from a government official. Either it was an estimate or they had some evidence, I do not know. But the Interior Minister, he gave me this figure that there were 1.2 million Ismailis living in Iran. Ismailis are living in many other parts, such as Abu Dhabi. There are 55 countries are listed here that Ismailis are living in Abu Dhabi, though very few, hardly about 100. Aden, about 60 to 70 Ismailis. Afghanistan, as I told you, 600,000. Australia, 150. Bangladesh, less than 500. Barbados, 22 Ismailis. Belgium, about 1,000, little more than 1,000. Burma, less than 100. Burundi, about 40. Ghana, 3 families, maybe 10. In China, mostly in Chinese, Turkestan, Shan, Xinjiang, Rastam, and Western Mongolia, and as I gave you the figure, 6.5 million Ismailis. Chitral, 200,000. Now this Chitral covers much other part which is not actually in Pakistan, so we can reduce to 150. Komoro, say about 35, 36 Ismailis. Ceylon, 250 Jamaat, now known as Sri Lanka. Denmark, just about 50 Ismailis. Dubai, nearly 200. France, about 1,200. Germany, 400. Holland, less than 100. And Hamburg, Hong Kong, there are 50 Ismailis in Hong Kong. Hunza, less than 100,000 including Gilgit. India, about 200,000. If we include the Guptis, so in India alone, there are about 400 or less than 400,000 Ismailis in India. Although the figure is much lower, which is collected by the Federal Council of India, they say it is round about 100,000 or a little more, maybe 5 or 10,000. Iran, 1.2 million. Iraq, just about 100. Ireland, 60 or 70, between 60 and 70. Ivory Coast, 46 now. Kashmir, about 5,000, and they are mostly Kashmiri Ismailis. Kenya, about 8,000 to 9,000. Kuwait, 6 to 800. Lebanon. Now if I take those Ismailis who are living in Lebanon for the past 75 years, who migrated from Syria, but now they are dwindling, and I would say within next 5 or 10 years, 100% they will be lost as Ismailis. They are about 5,000. Malagasy, we have 2,500 remaining. Malagasy is known as Madagascar. Malaya, 600. Muscat and Oman, 250. Mozambique, now known as Maputo, hardly 60 to 65 Ismailis remaining now. There were about 2,500. Almost all of them have migrated to Portugal. Norway, about 40 Ismailis. Pakistan, 500,000. Portugal, 2,500. Russia, 14 million. Rwanda, 50. Singapore, 100. South Africa, 36 Ismailis. Spain, about 150. Sweden, less than 50. Switzerland, about 125, maybe more. Syria, 100,000. Tanzania, less than 8,000. Thailand, 3 families, they make about 12 or 13 people. I had been to Thailand 2 years ago. Trinidad, there are again 3 families, make them 10. Uganda, 96 Ismailis now remaining. Few have gone, so that's why there was an increase. There was about 60 Ismailis. This 96 figure I got only 2 months ago. United Kingdom, 12,000 to 15,000. United States, about 7 to 8,000. Venezuela, there are 100 Ismailis. Zaire, about 800 to 1,000. Zambia, 4 or 5 families. You may hardly say 20 people. Apart from the countries mentioned above, Ismailis are scattered in many other countries in a very small number, though I have given you very small numbers too, such as Chile. There are 2 families in San Diego, Mauritius, New Zealand, Saudi Arabia. In Saudi Arabia, in Riyadh and in Jeddah, there are about 200 Ismailis. Jordan, Japan, Philippines, Ethiopia, Brazil, and Libya, and others. The Ismailis living in, and they are from Syria. As I told you, it is very difficult to give the exact population of the Ismailis, which is next to impossible. But the sources are the leaders of the community. And once I asked myself to Maulana Hazar Imam, because we have a lot of controversy about the population of Ismailis, Maulana Hazar Imam also said that it is very difficult to give the exact number of Ismailis, but they are over 22 million. So if Hazar Imam has accepted that figure, who knows better than anyone, I have no objection to that. Once Imam Sultan Muhammad Shah was questioned by the reporter about the population and the location of Ismailis living in the world. That was in 1934. So he abruptly said, except in hell, Ismailis are all over the world. So that was a very good answer. If you have any question, with the permission of the chair, I may be able to give to your own self, and that is what I could offer to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Alwaaz. I'll throw the floor open now for questions. I would ask that you limit your questions to the issues that Alwaaz Abu Ali has raised, and if you will kindly address your questions to the chair. Thank you.
I would like to know what are the reasons why the Ismailis in Lebanon, which amount to, if I got it incorrect, 500,000, would be lost.
These 5,000 Ismailis, I visited them with our Ismaili lawyer from Syria who lives in Lebanon, in Beirut. And if any one of you has gone to Lebanon, he knows that now the conditions are so bad we cannot travel, but I give you a little geography of Beirut. Beirut, the lower part of Beirut is known as Beirut town, city, and the upper part of Beirut is known as Alais. So our lawyer, his name is Khidr Hamdi. He's still in Beirut. He's a missionary himself also. In his car, we traveled in the upper part of Lebanon and met many Ismailis there who were Ismailis many years ago. Now they do not say that they are Ismailis, but they say that certainly we are coming from Ismaili parentage. When Syria and Lebanon, rather the whole Middle East, was under Turkish Empire of Ottoman, the last caliph of Ottoman Empire was Abdul Hamid, Sultan Abdul Hamid of Turkey, who was deposed by Mustafa Kemal in 1918. He was imprisoned in his palace, and he died in 1919 or in 20. And then in 1921, Mustafa Kemal Ataturk, he declared that Khilafat was abrogated, the constitution was abrogated, and he made it a public from Caliphate. During that period of Ottoman Caliphate, you know that they were rigid Orthodox Sunnis, and they used to purge Ismailis and Shias. Ismailis had a lot of difficulties in Syria. Many people who were in one way or the other involved in the war and politics, they fled the country and they came down to Lebanon and they lived there. This happened around about 75 to 80 years ago. They were afraid of their identity, so that's why they lived as Shias. They never declared or showed anyone that they were Ismailis. They were also afraid to tell their children, because in very young age children might speak that we are Ismailis, so they concealed it even from their children. And within the last 3 generations, they lost the identity, and children did not know. But the age group of over 50, they said that they were Ismailis. But the youngsters, they said, we are Muslims. And when I asked them which denomination of Muslim you belong to, they said, well, we are Muslims. They didn't know whether they were Shia, they didn't know whether they were Sunnis. So in this way, communication broke, contact did not exist, even between families and families, because of the fear of the Sultan, so we lost a big portion of 5,000 Ismailis. Actually 5,000 came from Syria, and if this was about 70 or 80 years ago, they might have multiplied to say 10 or 15,000 even. And we lost because of political reasons, because lack of communication between the Jamaat, and because of the fear.
You mentioned a figure of about 14 million Ismailis in Russia. Could you throw some light upon which parts of Russia the Ismailis live and whether they are allowed to practice their faith openly?
In many parts of Russia, Ismailis openly do not say that they are Ismailis. I gave you the geography. Say if you start from Caucasia, come down, then Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, and Azerbaijan, Badakhshan, Tajikistan, and all these parts and some other parts in Ural also, there are many Ismailis. Ismailis who are living in Russia near the border of Afghanistan and Iran, they openly say that we are Ismailis. There are Jamaat Khanas, and I have actually visited very near part to the border of Iran. The Jamaat Khanas are not known as Jamaat Khanas, they say Dargah. They speak Persian very well, and originally they are from Persian descent. They have Mukhis, they have Kamariyas, and Mukhis are known as Mazun, Mazun Awwal, Mazun Thani. Mazun Awwal is Mukhi, Mazun Thani is Kamariya. They pray like us, sitting down on the ground. They also stand in tasbih. They also come in the morning. Where such facilities are available, they come. But in many other parts, they don't go to Jamaat Khanas if they are very far or if they have any political trouble from the government. But all these areas are full of Ismailis, and in many parts they openly say that we are Ismailis. There are many villages 100% populated by Ismailis, so at their time they are very bold and they say openly that we are Ismailis. But when time comes, they conceal their iman. This is in Islamic terminology known as taqiyya, and Shias are always professing taqiyya. They practice taqiyya in most of the places. Your first question, I gave you the answer in my lecture, that the figures that I collected from the leaders of the Jamaat. Your second question is about the institutions. We have no institutions, no institute working anywhere in whole of Russia, China, and even in other parts, except in Afghanistan. There were, before the invasion of Russia, we had schools, but not Ismaili Association. There was a committee organizing and looking after the schools in Kabul and Jalalabad and Kandahar. In Syria, again, there is a council, And under that council, there are subcommittees about welfare and health and also education. And they have no communication with the outer world, but I know very well, and I have met many times during the last 40 to 50 years, every time that Imam Sultan Muhammad Shah used to come to Bombay, 2 or 3 people every year, they were coming from China, from Russia, from Chitral, from other parts, and I know very well, at least once or sometime twice a year, people who are authorized by the Jamaat traveling to Maulana Hazar Imam wherever it is possible. 3 years ago, when Hazar Imam came to United Kingdom, I myself met 2 people from Afghanistan, and there were 4 people from Syria. 2 people came from Russia, and they met Hazar Imam in London. The Afghan deputation, one of them I knew personally very well, so I told him that when you go to Hazar Imam, that the day that they had an appointment, well, I told them that you go, and after that we go to some restaurant and have a dinner. So we made an arrangement. I was waiting in our center at 5 Palace Gate. I waited till 11 o'clock in the night. They didn't turn up. Then I went away to my residence. Next morning I came to know they saw Hazar Imam in the hotel, and Hazar Imam told them that they must leave London immediately because they had some urgent message from Maula Baba instructions. So straight away from Hazar Imam's hotel, they went to the airport and they left the country. I couldn't meet them. So anywhere where Maula Baba thinks fit, once or twice a year, people from these parts where Ismailis are living, they have communication with Hazar Imam, but they have no communication with other Jamaats of the other parts of the world. I wish, and in 1963, asked Maulana Hazar Imam about this, that some Ismaili groups of youngsters well versed in photography and in other technique of the filming should travel these parts and they should photograph and take films. So Maulana Hazar Imam told me not even photographs and films, but also the tape recorders must be taken with them so that they may talk to them. Unfortunately, I couldn't make up myself. I told many youngsters, but so far this thing has not been materialized any time during the last 20 years of my efforts, and I still here take this opportunity to request you Canadians, you have money, you have facilities, you have knowledge, you have young age to travel and stand all the difficulties of the travel. Go there, meet them, and make contact. In future we might be able to make more contact with them, but presently there is no communication at all.